Hello guys, this is Boomerang here and welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna be doing a BTD6 round tier list. Now, I've been playing BTD6 for a pretty long time, so I've got most rounds memorized, or at least with all of the different rounds, I've got them memorized. If you're wondering, this is a number tier list. I didn't want to go through the pain of writing all of these numbers down. And I got this, if you're wondering, from Tier List Maker. Also, yeah, I know it's in a really weird order. Just ignore that for now, okay? So now the tiers, that S tier is basically going to be the hardest of the rounds, the hardest of the hardest. These are rounds that you'll probably die to a lot. A is going to be rounds that are really hard, but they aren't quite S tier. B tier is like rounds that are on the harder side of things, but the harder side of average. C tier is kind of like on the easier side of average. D is like an easy round, like it shouldn't be difficult at all. And then F tier is like rounds that are just jokes. So yeah, let's get started. Oh yeah, we also have zero. So zero. I'm pretty sure that's already nothing. So yeah, at least I heard that. Like round zero technically exists, although it's like nothing. Round one, I'm also going to put an F tier. You can literally defend it with anything. A dart, like a 000 dart, place down a free dart monkey. Round one's gone. There isn't really much to say. Round two is slightly more difficult. I'll put that in D tier, I think. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, maybe if you have like a dart or whatever, it'll get through. Although for the most part, whatever you start out with, it's not going to do much. Round three is a bit harder. I'm going to put that in C tier. Now, this might sound strange, but I'm actually going to put round four in A tier. Like I said, this sounds really strange, I know. Although the reason why is because on round four, there's a massive wave of blues. You probably know it, and it's really hard to defend all of them without leaking. The reason why I don't have an S tier is because you don't have to face against round four on chimps, thankfully. And also, because of that, you can just leak all the balloons. Round five, I think I'm gonna put in C tier. It's just a whole bunch of blues. There's not really much to it, I feel like. Six, seven, and eight, I also think I'll put in C tier. Um, they have a few greens mixed in with a decent amount of blues and reds. There isn't they're really hard on some maps like expert chimp maps, although there isn't really that much to these rounds, if you know what I mean. Round nine is definitely harder since it's just 30 greens, and the greens can be hard to deal with, so that's going in B tier. 10, I'm thinking we're gonna put in C as well. It's just 50 blues. 11, you have to deal with yellow balloons. 11 and 12 though usually aren't that hard, so I think they also go in C tier. 13, I'm actually gonna put in D tier. It's just greens and blues. There aren't any yellows. And I've noticed that 13 usually is a bit easier to defeat than other rounds, or at least the rounds around it. 14 is blues, greens, and yellows being layered on top of reds. So that's going in B tier. That's usually a bit harder than 11 and 12, even though you have more cash. And then round 15 is basically just a harder version of round 14. All of the balloons are layered on top of each other, and there also are pinks. And I'm pretty sure I've died to round 15 a lot of times. I mean, I feel like it would go in S if there wasn't better options for S tier. I think it's on the same difficulty as round 4. 16, I'm gonna put 16 and 17. No, I'm actually putting 17 in D tier. The regrows are not a big problem. 16 is just kind of meh. It's just greens and then some yellows at the end. 18 is also kind of meh. It's just a whole bunch of greens in a swarm. Usually it's pretty easy to deal with. 19 can be challenging sometimes because there's a lot of yellows and a lot of pinks. There's just a lot of balloons. 20, not really though. I've not ran into an issue with round 20 on this game. Round 21's a bit easier to deal with than round 19 because you have a bit more money. It's roughly the same contents. 22 and 23 though are pretty difficult rounds. I think they have a lot of white balloons and a lot of black balloons for round 23. Oh yeah, if you guys like this tier list and you want to see me do an alternate balloons round one, leave a comment because I'd love to do an alt ABR one as well. That I think that'll be fun as well. See what's different. 24, I'm gonna put in C tier. If you're on chimps, you have to respond to that camo or else you'll die. It'll force out some defense. If if you're not, you can literally just link the camo and it's not a big deal. 25, I think I'm also gonna put in C tier. Uh, Same for the 26. I haven't really had any problems with those rounds. They aren't the easiest at the same time. 27, I'm gonna put in B tier. It's a good Pierce capping round. There's a lot of balloons on it. Even though it's only reds to yellows, there's still a lot, and that can be hard to deal with. Round 28 and 30 are lead rounds. I'm actually gonna do this. This actually might seem weird putting round 30 in F tier. I'm gonna get to that in a second. Round 28, it forces lead detection out of you. You've probably died to leads before when you're really, it's just start playing. It's just more money you have to respond to. And if you want to leak it, I guess you could, depending on the game mode, although it'll just tank so many lives. Unlike the round 24 camo where you can just let it leak and it's no big deal. The reason why I have round 30 in F though is because even though it has three more balloons than round 28, they're a lot more spaced out. So the leads on round 30 are usually easier to deal with than the leads on round 28. In fact, it's actually pretty hard to die to round 30 and not round 28. Round 29 is going in D tier. I completely forgot about that. 31's going in B. A lot of zebras. You also have to deal with regrow zebras, which can probably be annoying depending on the towers you have. 32, I'm going to put in C. 32 isn't really a big problem round, I don't think. 33, I'm going to put in B because it forces camo detection. There isn't that many camos, but at the same time, it forces you to respond to them. There's enough that would basically be forced. It can also overrun your camo defenses sometimes, or if you have Quincy aim on some of your towers, there are yellows, so they'll just miss all the time. 34 has never been an issue for me. It's yellows with zebras mixed in with them. I've never had a Pierce capping problem or anything like that. It's always been an easy round for me. 35 I'm going to put in B tier because the rainbows can be quite annoying sometimes. And also just the amount of balloons. There's quite a lot. 36 I'm also going to put in B tier. 37 and 38 I'm both going to put in B tier. They are very similar rounds. 38 had ceramics at the end. Ceramics are usually not hard to deal with, but just the contents of them, like both of them have a lot of leads that you have to. Actually, I'm gonna put 38 in C tier since it has roughly the same amount of leads as 37. You need to have a good response for leads on 37. Oh yeah, there's also camo whites as well, which can be an absolute pain in the butt. You know what? I'm actually gonna bump both of these up a tier. 37 is going in A tier, I think. It has those camo whites that you have to deal with, and those are like the first beefy camo balloons as well. It isn't like just some greens or like space out yellows, unlike what it was before. You need a lot of camo damage then to deal with them. And also you have all of those leads in the beginning of the round as well. And like I said with the ceramics, I've not really had a problem with them in the past. Unlike the for whatever reason I've had problems with rainbows before, but not ceramics. I don't know why. Although 38 has a lot of the same contents as 37, so that's why it's only one tier lower. 39 is also going in B tier. It's like 30. Well, it's kind of like 38. It has a lot of rainbows. It also has regrow rainbows at the end, which could get you a regrow farm going. Although, yeah, it's not. Although, if you're smart enough about it, you probably won't have a regrow farm. And our first S tier, round 40, the Moab. I've died to that thing so many times. And I mean, and do I know how to be easy? Yes. I'm not a noob, okay? But like on especially on expert maps, the Moab is just it comes out so early and it forces out so much defense. And if you're like on an expert map or whatever and you need more defense to take care of less balloons, it's so easy to die to. It also forces a hero ability. Like most of the time you can't even defend it without a hero ability. So I think that definitely shows you how tough the Moab is, and it definitely deserves S tier for that. Now the 40s aren't really that hard in general. It's like roughly the same difficulty throughout a lot of rounds, and you get a lot more money. I feel like than the difficulty says it is. Although there are a few rounds that stand out. I think 41. I'll do the easy ones first. 41's going in D. I think 44 is going in F. 45's also going in F. I think 48's going in F. 46 is going in D. I've never had problems with fortified ceramics, although I guess depending on the towers you have, you might. But there's fortified ceramics on round 48. Yeah, but there's less. They're the same spacing. So you would have died to them on 46 if you had that problem. 41 and 44 are just a whole bunch of zebras on them. 45 and 48 have some rainbows in there. They have like some spaced out camo purples, which I guess those can be an absolute pain in the butt. Like if you aren't prepared for the purples, for camo purples, that could be bad, but that's like very niche. You know what? Just because of that, I'll bump it up to D tier. And the leads on 45, the fortified leads, they usually are not a problem, or at least from my experience, they aren't too much of a problem since there's just not a lot of them on that round. 42, I'm gonna put in C tier. Yeah, I'm putting in C tier. The camo rainbows can be an absolute pain. It's kind of like 37. It's beefy camo balloons. You need a lot of camo detection to take them out. Although it's not too hard of a round at the same time either. 43 and 47 are both going in B tier. These rounds have a lot of ceramics, and I've died to these rounds a lot before because I tend to under prepare on the 40 since most of them are pretty easy, and then I run into one of these rounds and I just die. And 49, it has even more ceramics than 43 and 47. Not to mention there's greens, a constant stream of greens, which just makes it even more wonderful for pierce capping and that sort of stuff. It's usually only the ceramics are a problem. They do have Rico rainbows. I've never ran into problems with them on 49. But yeah, it's usually the ceramics which I die to. 50 I'm going to put in B tier. It has two Moabs, but they're very spaced out, and 10 rounds, especially with the amount of money you make during the 40s, it makes a massive difference, and Moabs are just a lot easier to deal with. I feel like most of the 50s, they aren't easy, but they aren't really difficult at the same time either. I feel like a lot of them will like be in the C tier. 51's kind of an outlier. Camo ceramics, they can be an absolute pain in the butt. I mean, you need a lot of camo detection to take out those. They're also pretty tight as well, which doesn't really help. And there's a lot of them as well. It's just I've died to it before on multiple occasions, and it's just a hard round. I feel like, and like I said, it's just the ceramics. There aren't even any Moabs on it. It's just those camo ceramics. You just need a lot of camo detection, and it just forces out money like that. I'm actually gonna put 50 in C tier. 52 is also C tier. 53, 54, 55 I'm going to put in D. I'm going to explain these in a little bit. 56 I'm also going to put in D. 57, 58. I'll go C. And 59 I'll go C. Alright. So 52. So I think the 50s actually increase are probably the most balanced rounds if you consider it like in relative difficulty. It increases at roughly the same in difficulty at roughly the same rate as you get more money. So that's why I have so many of these in C tier, and they aren't really that hard either. 52 also has two maps, but they're a lot closer together, and they're no, I don't think there's ceramics under it. I think that's more of an issue with 54. 54 has two Moabs, although it has a lot of ceramics underneath, which can interfere with popping them. 53 has three Moabs. 58 has five Moabs, but they're spread out, so they're pretty easy to deal with each one. 59 has. I'll actually put 58 in D tier because of that. It's just, even though there's more Moabs, it's easier to deal with each one. 59 is Camel Leads, which can be a problem, and maybe it might force out some upgrades, although usually at that time you have both camo and lead detection. Well, you have both. You have camo lead detection on tower. It's not really a problem that late, I feel like. There are a lot of camo leads, though. That has been a problem before. 57, there are waves of two Moabs, which can be really problematic for there are two of them as well. That could be really problematic for pierce capping. 55 is like a miniature 63, although for whatever reason it's not that difficult. Or at least from my experience, it's not that difficult. It's not like 63 where it's like one of the hardest rounds of the game. 56 is a whole bunch of camo rainbows, I think. It's a lot like 51 before, although very completed 51. So you have good camo detection. So 56 shouldn't be that hard, and then there's just a Moab at the end. The BFB, I think it's definitely the worst of all of the Moabs, I think, or it's the easiest to deal with. Mainly because it comes out relatively late, and you already have a lot of stuff to deal with it. Or sorry, and you you get a lot of money, like a lot more than you would need to deal with the BFB. There's also the fact that it gets slowed down and that sort of stuff, taken out, like pirate hooked or whatever, by basically the same things as Moabs are dealt with a few exceptions like Trojans from Ben or whatever. It's also much slower than the Moab, and the increase in health doesn't really make up for it. So yeah, well, I guess it is technically harder than Moabs, especially if it because they spawn into Moabs, but the decrease in speed is just so slow. It's not really a threat. The 60s are so backwards. The first few rounds in the 60s are so extremely hard, although then it gets so ridiculously easy after that. It's actually so weird. It's almost like it should be flipped around. It's ridiculous. All right, let's go to 60s. 61 and 62, I'm going to both put an A tier. I haven't ran into very many issues with these rounds, although I've seen other people run into problems, especially in 2 megaprops. 61, it's easy to cause a regrow farm. 62, there's a whole bunch of purples. If you're using magic towers, it's like really bad since it'll block the projectiles for hitting the Moabs on that round. There's also just a lot of them as well, and they just interfere with like Pierce and whatever. It's just kind of they're just hard rounds in general. They also have 5 Moabs each, with 62 having fortified Moabs at the end, which can be a bit of a problem. But there's really one round that I'm thinking after 62 where 4 and 5 Moabs are much more of a problem. We'll see that in a second. And then there's 63. Do I need to explain this? There are so many ceramics. Not to mention there's 3 waves. So you can't just use hero abilities on it, unlike 76 and 78. You can just knock them out with like a storm of arrows or one's firestorm. No, you have to deal with them basically brute force because there's 3 of them. Unless you have 3 separate abilities to deal with ceramics, which is a lot of money, by the way. It's just such a hard round. I've died to 63 a lot. I know a lot of people in the community have died to 63 a lot. You need really good ceramic damage in order to deal with those massive clumps of ceramics for 63, and that's why I think it deserves S tier. And there's also the leads to top it on top, so just to for the cherry on top, just to interfere with some projectiles. I mean, it isn't apparent that much how they interfere with or lead interference, although it has happened to me before. 64, this is going to be hot take, although I'm also going to put it in S tier. This is what I was talking about, the round about with 4 or 5 Moabs that's harder than 62. There are just so many Moabs. There's been countless times where I've been just, I've been trying to save up for something or whatever, and then I'm defeat round 63. I'm so happy. And then I just died to 64. There are so many Moabs. There's 8 Moabs, 3 fortifieds. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's it. I actually saw on a. I need to count it actually. I actually saw on a chart that's 6. I've seen 6 on one chart, 8 on another. I don't know, but either way, there are so many Moabs. They're also extremely tight together as well. So it's basically like another round 63, although you have to deal with Moabs this time and not ceramics. Not to mention the fortifieds are at the end of that massive chain of Moabs which comes out. So you're gonna have to deal with the normal ones first. So the fortifieds will already be like halfway through the map, and then you have to deal with those. It's just so easy to leak to. And I definitely think it's a lot harder than both 61 and 62. And I think it's almost as hard as 63 personally. Oh, that's definitely deserving S tier in my opinion. 65 is a round that I have not really ran into that many problems with. Um, it has 2 BFBs, so pierce capping could be a problem when taking care of both of them, but I've just not ran into many problems. And then there's the late 60s, which I really question what Ninja Kiwis was thinking with these. 66, gonna put in D tier. I guess the clump of 4 Moabs might cause pierce capping. If it if it does, you've probably died on 64. To be honest, it's 66 is literally an easier version of 64. It's 66, but it's spread out. Like they're not clumped together. If you're only 2 Moabs, then 2 Moabs, then 4, then 3 fortifieds. Well, in 64, they're all right next to each other, causing so much mayhem and causing basically causing everything a pierce cap. It just lets you take care of them bit by bit. You know, I actually wonder even if it deserves D tier. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at D tier. It's really hard to die to 66. I guess if you like weren't paying attention and you used your abilities on 64 and then you just kind of forgot about 66, you could die, or you used on 65 or something like that. I don't know, but it's just really hard to. And once you defeated the clump of 4 Moabs at 66, you'd expect that you'd expect to be able to take care of it on both 67 and 68, right? Well, obviously Ninja Kiwi doesn't think so. 67 has 2 of them. 2 clumps of 4 Moabs. One at the very beginning, then there's a whole bunch of camo fortified ceramics. Camo regrow fortified ceramics, I think. Although those, at that time, those aren't really a big deal. You, at least from my experience, I've gotten strong enough camo detection that they don't really go very far. 68 has another clump of 4 Moabs, and then a BFB. And I already talked about how the BFB isn't really that hard for 60. You just have 8 rounds more of cash now. So you just have even more stuff to throw at it. And then there's 69, which I think I need to make a new tier. At a row below. I think it just deserves to go into its own tier. You know, I've wondered if anyone has ever died to this round. Although I did end up seeing actually an incident of someone dying to 69. The reason why is because there's so many camo fortified leads, and the only way he could pop them was with it. He was trying to do 2 mega pops, and the way he could pop camo lead was with an ace with Ace's pineapples, and it was on resort as well, so it was able to take care of 59 and that sort of stuff. Although there was just so many of them, and the pineapples are just too slow and they don't do a lot of damage, so he actually ended up dying to 69. But that's the only time I've ever seen someone die to it. There's a lot of camo fortified leads, yes. Although at the same time, it's 10 rounds after 59. You've got like ones which give you a lot of cash, like 61 and 62. You probably have at least some sort of tier 5 on or at least something which would deal with fortified leads, camo fortified leads very easily. So that's literally not an issue at all. It has no Moab class balloons on it. And then the rest are just space out rigorous ceramics, I think. It actually is a meme round. I swear. They must have. I have a feeling it 69 was intentionally put there to be a meme round. The early 70s are also pretty easy as well. You just they aren't the rounds aren't super difficult with the amount of money you have. 70, I think you're gonna put an F tier. 70 is a bit harder than 69, although I think it's on par with these rounds. It only has some Moabs. It doesn't have any BFVs. 71 is the same way, although it has like 8 Moabs together, I think. It has a lot more. Maybe it's 10, I don't know. It has a lot more Moabs together. It's kind of like they're also close together as well, so that some pierce capping problems might happen. That's if you didn't die to it on round 64. 72, 73, and 74. I'm also going to put in D tier. To be honest, I don't even remember what's on these rounds. 74 is like a whole bunch of stuff, like a whole bunch of ceramics, and then a BFB goes, and then camo for go fortified ceramics, something like that. 72 is kind of similar. 73, I don't even know what's on that round. I've not struggled with those rounds before, so yeah, I think D tier is appropriate. I don't think they're like on this level of easy though. At the same time, 75 though. Let's go all the way from D tier to S tier because, bro, why are there so many BFBs? There are 7 BFBs, and there are 2 waves of 3 BFBs on top of each other, which is such a Pierce cap hazard. It's actually ridiculous. I've died to 75 many times. It's definitely considered one of the hardest rounds on hard mode, that's for sure. 76 and 78, I'm actually going to rank together. I'm going to put both of these in A tier. The reason why is because it's easy to take out with hero abilities, and you also, with how long 77 is, and also the waves, the distance between the waves and 78, the hero's abilities can come back in time to just annihilate each wave of ceramics. But if you don't have them, that it's definitely still a challenge. There's a lot of ceramics, and not to mention the second wave on 78 is camos, so you have to have a lot of camo detection, and it also pierce caps decamos as well, which is not great at all. 77 we're gonna put in B tier. There's been a couple times that I've somehow survived 75 but died to 77. I'm not exactly sure why, because 77 has less BFBs than 75, and they aren't like extremely clustered together either. Well, I think there's 4 which are like pretty close to each other, 4 or 5, although they aren't right on top of each other compared to 75. I've seen people die on 2 TC rounds, or die on 2 TCs on 75, 79 before, but I've never really had problems with it. There's always a regrow hazard just due to how many regrow rainbows there are. There's also the fortified BFBs at the end, although those shouldn't really be a problem. 80 I'm going to put in C tier. The ZOMG can be difficult. It could maybe force out some defense, although it's not that difficult either. Something I think people fail to appreciate is the massive power spike from 80 to 81, or 79 to 81. 79, there was only 4 BFBs, 2 fortifieds, and a whole bunch of Regal Rainbows. 81, there's 15 BFBs. Not to mention, some of them are really tight together. Not to mention, you have to deal with super ceramics as well. I've died to 81 before on multiple occasions. In fact, with my recent runs on Last Resort, most of the Raider 1 rounds, the ones that take their long track, were easy. But 81 actually caused me problems. And that was like the only problem round, which had a remainder of 1 if you divided by 4. Took the long track, which gave me problems. So I think that's definitely deserving of A tier. 82 is just like 81, but with fortifieds at the end. Fortifieds aren't as clustered, although it doesn't really have the density. It's roughly the same difficulty though, I think. 83 I'm going to put in F tier. I mean, that round's used in like challenges a lot. It's a pretty easy round, especially since there aren't that many Moabs there. I think they were trying to go for density, although there just aren't that many Moabs there, and also the waves of ceramics that go through those clusters of 3, if you know what I mean. Those just they come off cooldown, Or they just make it so abilities can easily reset their cooldowns. 84 is going in B tier. 84 has a lot of density, but the only thing which 84 is going in B tier, it has a lot of density. It's kind of like an 81, but worse. Although in that regard, although the reason why it's a tier lower than 81 is because you have a lot more cash, so it's just easier to deal with because of that. 85 I haven't really had any issues with. It's just two ZOMGs spaced out. 86 I'm gonna put in F tier. It's just 82 but easier. It's 545 BFBs. That's it. 82 has 545 BFBs and 10 normal ones. 87. Oh boy. I I want to put in an S tier, but I'm not. 87 has 4 ZOMGs, and the ZOMGs are very tight together. And with the amount of money you have, at that point, it is very hard to deal with all 4 of them. Actually, I am putting it in an S tier. I might change my mind later, but I'm putting it in S tier currently. 88 isn't really that hard of a round. I'll put it in C tier. It has 2 ZMGs at the end. Well, actually, no, it's harder than 80 and 85. I'll put it in B tier. Wait, but it's easier than. I'm actually gonna put 85 in D tier and 88 in C. Because the two ZMGs, you have so much more money to deal with them than on 80. And 88 has 2 ZMGs, although you have a lot more money to deal with them. They're also together. Oh, there's also some Moabs and BFBs. There's nothing fortified though. 89 I'm going to put in D tier. There's a lot of fortified Moabs and a lot of fortified BFBs, although I haven't really ran into that many problems with it. 90 I'm going to put in C tier. It's the first round with DDTs. You probably died to them the first time you ran into it. But it's not really that hard of a round in the grand scheme of things. There is some time where there's just fortified leads for you to get your ability cooldowns back. And then the DDTs just, and there's only 3 and they're pretty spaced out. You also have a decent amount of money at that time to deal with it. 91 I'm also going to put in C tier. It's there's fortified ceramics sprinkled in and a massive wave of BFBs. I think they're going for density, although I've not ran into density problems with it before. Or not really, at least. I've not really ran into problems with 91. It's just a whole bunch of normal BFBs. Or what I mean is that it's not like compared to 94 or 96 or 98, like rounds like that. It's just a lot easier than those rounds for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure why. 92 I'm going to put in B tier. It's a whole bunch of 4 or 5 Moabs and then 4 ZOMGs at the end. The ZOMGs are easier to deal with than 87 just because it's a higher round and you have more money. The 4 or 5 Moabs can be a pain in the butt, just dealing with all of them, and the 4 or 5 ceramics they spawn, and then you have to deal with the ZOMGs as well. Although I think it's definitely the most tame out of the 90s rounds ending with an even number. Well, you know what I mean, right? The density rounds in the 90s. I think it's the most tame out of all of them. 93, I'm also going to put in. No. I'll put in C. It's 4 or 5 BFVs and 6 DTTs. The DTTs are roughly the same as 90. There isn't really much else to say. You have more money to deal with it. There's 6 instead of 3, and they're also close together, but you have more money. It's roughly the same difficulty. There's also the 4 or 5 BFBs underneath it, although there's not really enough to cause any problems. 94. I'm going to put you in A tier. Whoop. There. 94 is the first round where there's a crap ton of balloons. There's a crap ton of BFVs, crap ton of ZOMGs, and you have to actually worry a lot about density. Random fact, this is actually something I just realized a couple days ago, but 94 is actually the only round in the 90s which has no fortified balloons. The rest of the rounds have at least one type of balloon which is fortified. 95. Oh my god. I've died to this round so many times. So many times. It forces out so much stuff. Not to mention, you basically have to get reliable DDT counter just for 95. If 95 didn't exist, there probably would have been so many more available combinations for 2 TCs or whatever, and chips would have just been so much easier. But no, 30 DDTs! Are you actually kidding me? Like, like 99 has like 9, I think. It's when you compare it to the rest of the 90s, that's when you just realize how egregious 30 is. They're also so spread out as well, so you can't just use one ability and knock them out. No, you have to like, use multiple just to deal with all of them. It's actually ridiculous. Definitely an S tier, I think. And I actually think I think it's the second hardest round in the entire game. Second or third. Actually third now that I think about it. 96 is a lot like 94. It's going in A tier as well. Very similar rounds. 96 just has some 4 and 5 Moabs underneath the BFVs and ZOMGs, although it should be roughly as difficult. 97 is going in F tier. 2 4 and 5 ZOMGs. Like, only 2? Like, you have so much money at this point to defend against them. Why only 2? I mean, it should have been 4 at least. And that's an underestimate. Like, probably maybe 6 or 8 if you're not having any other balloons. And with 98, we jump from F tier to S tier. 98. 98. 34 5 BFVs, 8 ZOMGs. The fact that there's just so many fortifieds, and there's just so much RBE in general, it's both a pierce capping hazard and also a damage hazard. And also a damage problem. There's just so many balloons. There's so much RBE. It's a round with the most RBE in the entire game. And it's very easy to lose against it if you're not careful. 99, some people say it's harder than 95, although I don't think so. I've died to it before, but I guess in some niche situations, the 4 and 5 DDTs can be more difficult. Oh, there's just so much fewer than 95 that I think it's a tier lower. And 100. I'm gonna put you in S tier. The bad. The bad is I for a long time have underappreciated the bad. You see, on beginner maps, it's not really a big problem. Although for whatever reason, on much more difficult maps with shorter tracks, the bad gets like exponentially harder to deal with. And then when you go on expert maps, it's just like death. I've died to the bad so many times on like really hard maps, it's ridiculous. Yeah, anyways, that's my tier list. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, dislike if you dislike, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace out!